Thank you for joining us for the Miami Valley Salute to Veterans. I'm Bob Daly, a volunteer host for the Miami Valley Communications Council. A longtime volunteer for the Communications Council, I learned the tricks of the trade by covering city council meetings in Bellbrook and Centerville. I'm an old newspaperman and well aware of the need for an informed public. Public access television helps fulfill that need. We hope that hearing these memories from the veterans of our community will help us all better understand the dedication of those who served. With me today, we're talking to Jeff Tingle of Washington Township and an Air Force veteran who served from 1974 to 1997. He'll tell us the story of his time in the military. Tell us a little bit about you're in the community. You live in Washington Township?
Yes, sir. Bob, I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks.
Are you a Dayton boy? Did you grow up here?
No, sir. Actually, we got here as soon as we could, but unfortunately, I'm the son of a Navy officer. So I went up and down the East Coast, and then I joined the Air Force, spent 23 years and traveled every place else. Ended up here by happy accident and couldn't imagine retiring anyplace else.
Oh, how did you get acquainted? Were you assigned here at some time?
After I retired from the Air Force, I went into trucking, and my terminal happened to be right up the road in Springfield, and had friends that we chased around the Air Force that had retired from Wright Pat.
Sure. Yeah.
So when my wife taught briefly in Germany when I was over the road, and I'd take time off at their house and started looking around, we thought, you know what? There's plenty of good jobs here.
Oh, yeah.
Cost of living is reasonable, so that's how we ended up here.
It's a great place to live and grow up.
Absolutely.
When did you go into the military?
In 1973, I was a goofball high schooler that wasn't quite sure what he wanted to do. My dad went to the Naval Academy, retired, and went into banking. I just didn't think that would be my thing, so I went and joined the Air Force.
Oh, when was that?
I joined in January of 1974.
74.
And I took the ASVAB, or entrance examinations, did really well, and they initially put me in intelligence looking at reconnaissance imagery. But really, as I got into the course, I decided this really is not going to work for me. And they said, well, can't use the stereoscope to look at the images. So they sent me down to aircraft maintenance school. And I knew nothing about maintenance because I'd never worked on cars or anything like that as a kid. But I tell you what, Bob, looking back at 23 years on the flight line, I couldn't imagine doing anything else. Loved it.
Where did you start?
Well, Shepherd Air Force Base was my training school.
Training school. Where was that?
And that's in Wichita Falls, Texas, northwest of Dallas. And got there, and great cadre of instructors. We had civilians as well as military, and our primary instructor was a retired Air Force guy that was a civilian. His name was Mr. Rooker. He taught me more in that little short course that we take, which that's all they do is the basics, and then you get to your permanent base, and that's where you undergo your real training. Anyway, I had never tried chewing tobacco. And Mr. Rooker offered me some.
That's your introduction to the military.
There we go. He wanted to start me out right.
If they're going to make it in the military here, buddy, you got to have some chewing tobacco.
Absolutely. Well, anyway, when I graduated from aircraft maintenance training, everybody else in my class, there was 12 of us, went to one of the pilot training bases in Texas to work on the T-38 trainer. A buddy of mine, Steve, and I both went to California. I went to Mather Air Force Base in Sacramento, which is now closed, sadly, and he went to McClellan, which is across town. Anyway, my first assignment on a specialty that mostly concentrates on fighters, I worked on the Boeing 737 the Air Force used as navigator trainers. I mean, it was like working for Southwest Airlines, except I was wearing a uniform. It was great. I enjoyed it immensely, got to travel all over California and all that.
How long were you there?
And I was only there 2 years because I was young, single, and wanted to see the world, so I put in my assignment preference sheet, and I just put worldwide down. So they sent me to a little bitty base in South Korea Picture of the Maytag repairman in an Air Force uniform. There were 4 of us, didn't have any airplanes on base, and all we did was we were gas station attendants for any aircraft that came through.
Oh, yeah.
It was a Korean Air Force base, and we were their tenants, and it was a great assignment. We were guaranteed to get 2 cargo planes a week, but they'd overfly us if they didn't have anything for us. But on the other hand, we got plenty of the fighters from the Air Force, Navy, Marines, Army helicopters, just anything that could be in that part of the world. Absolutely neat assignment.
And they came in to be refueled and go on?
That's right. They came in, the gas and lunch. Didn't have any real maintenance facilities. If an airplane broke there, their own people from back at their home station had to send somebody. But it was a nice assignment. Only spent a year, though.
Yeah. How big a base?
Well, there was only 180 Americans on base.
Yeah.
Like I said, but it was a large Korean base, and they had 2 wings there, as well as it shares the airfield with the city's airport. Gwangju's the 5th largest city in South Korea. And I enjoyed that assignment immensely.
Okay, and how long were you there?
I was there just a 1-year remote tour.
1 year remote tour, and then what?
Then I went to Homestead Air Force Base, Florida, 50 miles from home. So
Hey, that can't be too tough, Judy. Somebody's got to do it.
it was nice. It really was. Although going from the Boeing 737 to an F-4 Phantom is a whole different world. The fighters, of course, are built for speed and high performance, and the 737 is built to easy maintenance access and passenger comfort. So that was a whole different world. But I loved Homestead, spent 2 years there, and then went back to Korea because I, again, put worldwide down. Yeah. And when I got to Kunsan, Korea, which is on the west coast of Kunsan, about where Naples would be in Florida, I had a really neat job. Again, I started out in the heavy repair shop where we did landing gear, flight controls, and all that. And we also took care of any crashed or emergency with the aircraft. Then they moved that function over to the same outfit that takes care of the servicing of the visiting aircraft. So I did that again and enjoyed it immensely. From there, I came back to Langley Air Force Base, Virginia. Oh boy! Where I got my first introduction to the F-15.
So, was your career was designed for short-term duty in several?
Well,
places?
that was just the thing is they go where they need you and what aircraft you work on, preferably.
I see.
But in the case of this navigator trainer, the Boeing 737, that's only one base. But so they have to sometimes you might go from working on one airplane to a different one at a different base. But they try to so they don't have to retrain you every time you move.
Oh, I see. So your specialty is
Correct.
where you end up.
Right.
You mentioned Germany before.
Yes, sir.
When did you get to Germany? You're in Virginia now.
I was in Virginia.
Okay, now where?
I went to Germany twice. The first time was to Sembach Air Base, which is in the Kaiserslautern area, real near Ramstein and Landstuhl Hospital and all that. Kaiserslautern is a huge military community. Even now, there's I think that's the largest concentration of Americans outside of the U.S.
Is that right?
In that area. Love that as well. I worked on a little OV-10 aircraft, which is forward air control. It basically is the link between the folks on the ground and the fighters and bombers that protect them. And it's like working on a overgrown Cessna with a bunch of radios. And it was a good time. We went down to Spain and supported exercises down there, and we supported the Army over in other parts of Germany, and it was a good time. It really was.
Oh, sure. What could be better? Were you single at this time?
I was still single, but at the end of that tour, I met a lovely young woman from the Mosel River wine village area and brought her back. I had to go back and get her the second time. But anyway, how I got to Wright-Patterson for one day was we ferried the aircraft from Sembach to George Air Force Base, California. Took us 11 days, and since the OV-10 is not pressurized, we had to stop at every place along the North Atlantic, Iceland, Greenland, what used to be Frobisher Bay, it's Inuvik, I think is the name now, then down to Labrador, and then to Maine, and then to Wright-Pat, and then on out.
Oh, boy.
So I got to spend one day on active duty at Wright Pat, but ended up retiring here.
Oh, yeah.
Best movie ever made.
And that was your only connection?
That was my only connection to Wright
Wow.
Pat, other than the great engineers on base
Yeah.
that support all of us fighter fixers.
So that little airplane you were flying back is what they used for forward artillery observers.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I remember that because I was in the artillery. I was anti-aircraft artillery.
Okay.
But had done enough. In fact, I had hoped to go. It was L-19, I think, at one time.
Okay,
The
yeah, that
Army
was
had-
his predecessor.
Its predecessor. Just a little bit of an airplane up there so you could see ahead.
Right.
And so, but you couldn't get high enough to fly very far.
That's true.
which
It's
is why
not
you had to
pressurized.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what prompted you to, you got out Wright Patterson. What impacted on you? What made you think, hey, this looks good?
Well, that actually didn't come until later. I, like I said, went back to Germany, to Bitburg, to work on F-15s and bring back that lovely young woman I'd met before.
Yeah.
So they closed Bitburg in 1994, and we didn't know where we wanted to go. Had to go to an F-15 base, but at the time, Mountain Home Air Force Base, in fact, they still have them, and we thought we might go to Virginia or even stay overseas, but friends from that had come from Mountain Home told us what a great place it was. So we ended up going there. I spent my last 2 years as being in charge of the outfit that takes care of the visiting airplanes. So that was probably my favorite assignment, although I enjoyed all of my
What made
jobs.
it so favorite?
Well, the variety of aircraft you service, you get to meet a lot of air crews and passengers from the other services, and I think some of my best war stories involve the folks in the other services.
Well, give me your best war story.
Best war story probably involves Marines. When I was at the first time in South Korea, I was at Gwangju, and we used to get a lot of Marine fighters in. Now, I was fairly new, and now the Air Force probably goes by the book too much, and the Marines have a different interpretation. So there I am. We had a flight of two F-4s from the Marine base in Okinawa stop for fuel and lunch. And when they came back out, I said, well, there's a little minor leak in one of your hydraulic systems. And the pilot looks at me and said, Chief, you know what that means? I said, no, sir. He says, that means there's still fluid in the system. And he got in the aircraft and we launched him out. Got tons of stories like that, but loved it.
Was that a bit risky?
No, not really. I mean, airplanes leak all the time. This was just,
Yeah.
a drop, maybe 30 seconds later another one or something.
He says, I got work to do. I can't.
Oh, yeah,
I can't.
yeah.
I can't worry about that.
Once they get the engines running, you got a gauge inside you. He has and you have to look at to make sure it's good. So, no risk.
No risk policy.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. And then when did you were back to Germany? The first time you were there, you met your wife,
83 to 84, I met.
and then you went back and
Went back to
married her?
36 and married her in the Valentine's Day of 1989.
and then brought her back.
And then brought her back.
Yeah.
She graduated from Cologne University
Oh,
and is now a teacher in Centerville.
Oh, is that right?
Things worked out really well. We bought a house a long block if you go through the little cul-de-sac next door to the middle school where she teaches. So, like I said, everything has just fallen into place. We love being here.
yeah. And when was that?
We moved here in 2000.
2000. And she went to school in Cologne, Germany.
She did.
Yeah.
Graduated from the University of Cologne.
Oh my goodness! Yeah.
I got pretty lucky.
Oh,
Very lucky.
it sure sounds like you did. And when at the second time you went back and brought her back, did you get out of the service then, or you were in the service?
I had one more assignment.
One more assignment.
And I served 23 years, but that was the last assignment at Mountain Home Air Force Base, Idaho.
Idaho. And she lived there with you?
She
You were
did,
married and
yes.
you
In
lived
fact, she was an adjunct at
And
Boise State.
And then you're going to get discharged.
Retired, yes, sir.
Yeah,
Discharged.
You talk about what do we do next?
Well, oddly enough, I had always wanted to try driving a truck and then maybe move into management or go back to school or something.
Yeah.
So anyway, in the meantime, she went back to Germany to teach for 3 years, and that's how we ended up here looking around. But what I did was I went straight to truck driving school in Oklahoma. I went to work for a company called U.S. Express, and I stayed with them for the next 26 years. Just worked out absolutely great.
Yeah.
I did over the road for four years and saw all of the states in Ontario and Quebec.
You said she went back to Germany and taught for 3 years. What, did you have a hardship tour?
Well, she went to teach there because we really weren't sure. I loved living in Germany, and she loved living in the States, and we weren't quite sure where we wanted to end up.
Yeah.
But we decided, and I think we made the right decision. After 3 years, we decided, we're going to live back in the States.
Okay. And what made you choose? I'm trying to get to the point. Why Dayton?
Why Dayton? Well, like I said, I went to work and drove over the road, got to see all 50 states. And while she was in Germany, we'd go back and forth. She would ride with me during the summer, and then she got a couple other breaks during the year.
Yeah.
And we got to see everything. It was like being on vacation in a motorhome, except you get paid to deliver freight.
Oh.
And like I said, we had friends that we had chased around the Air Force for like 4 different assignments. That he retired from Wright Pat, and they actually live 3 blocks from us now.
Yeah.
So when Dagmar was teaching in Germany and I would need some time off from the truck, I'd park my truck at the terminal and stay at their house, and they toured me around this area. And like I said, I thought that we could find 2 really good jobs here. As it turned out, my job stayed for a long time after that, and then Dagmar came to Germany and got a job at Centerville. And
how long has she been teaching school here?
Since 2000.
Is that right?
She actually got hired. We were over in Virginia delivering a load when the HR manager from Centerville called and had to explain that, well, I'm over in Virginia in a big truck, but my dispatcher got me a load that came right through here. She interviewed, they liked her, and she liked them, and that's how we ended up here.
So that's what it, because you could have been anywhere driving a truck.
We could have, yes.
Yeah. Which school? Is she Watts Middle School?
She's actually at Watts Middle School, loves it there.
Yeah. Oh, great, yeah. What was the best part of your military experience?
Well, again, I really didn't know what I wanted to do in life. And like for many veterans, I think you go in and you get a sense of purpose and you get your bearings straightened out. And for me, I love the travel and the experiences and meeting people from all over the world and taking our airplanes and going all kinds of neat places.
Tell me again, why did you choose Air Force?
Well, like I said, my dad was in the Navy, and I got to admit, watching the start of Top Gun and launching Tomcats off a carrier appealed to me after I got into aircraft maintenance. But I wasn't the seagoing type. Yeah. The Navy goes a lot of neat places, but they only spend a few days in port. When we'd go someplace, we'd go for 30 days or so, and you get to see the whole surrounding area.
Yeah. You didn't see any combat?
Did not. I'm eligible for the VFW because I served in Korea, which is technically still at war with the North. But the thing is, if our senior leaders feel like they can have family members and all of that, 20 minutes flying time from Pyongyang, it can't be that dangerous. Yeah. However, when I was there in 1976, there were 2 Army officers killed in the joint security area at Panmunjom by the North Koreans who came across the little border there. It was a tree trimming incident. Some of your listeners may remember that, but that was as close as this young airman ever got to combat, thankfully.
Okay. If you're just joining us, this is a Miami Valley Communications Council Salute to Veterans podcast. I am your host, Bob Daly, and today we're talking with Jeff Tingle, a Washington Township and an Air Force veteran. Tell me, where were you when you discharged? Where were you when you retired?
My last assignment was Mountain Home Air Force Base, Idaho.
Idaho, so you're in Idaho.
So we're in Idaho.
Yeah, and Dagmar's in in Germany.
Meanwhile, we retired, and there's one extra step. Like I said, she taught at her background was in education, and she was an adjunct there at Boise State, and she was hired to be an adjunct at Purdue, and with the view of maybe becoming a professor. So we packed up, we put our stuff in storage, and went out to West Lafayette, Indiana, and we were lucky enough to snag married student housing. They let us stay there, and we started talking, and we said, she said, I don't want to be an adjunct the rest of my life. And by this time I had already gone to work for U.S. Express, and I was living in a large red sleeper truck. Anyway, she got this job teaching in Germany, in what used to be East Germany, so that was a whole different experience for her. And in the meantime, like I said, I went over the road once I went through truck driver training.
And did you have any trouble adjusting to civilian life after? How many years were you in?
I was in 23.
23 and retired.
I am, Bob. I really wanted to drive a truck. Like I said, the short goal was to at least try it. But as it turned out, that was really what I wanted to do. The military has great programs for veterans to get out to get you into the civilian workforce, and I went through all of that, and how to dress for success and resume and all that. And back then in 1996, I filled out a postcard initially to apply to U.S. Express. It's a little more involved after that, of course, once they agree to hire you. But,
and why trucking?
I love travel, always have, and what a great way to see the country, as well as if you like people, you get to meet a whole lot of different people from all over the country or wherever you run. If you don't like people, you can just briefly deal with them, get back in the truck, close the door, and be by yourself. So it's best of both worlds.
So you're talking about the 18-wheelers.
Yes, sir.
I can't imagine trying to turn on a corner at a stoplight or whatever.
It takes a little practice, but it's like riding a bicycle. Once you get used to it,
Is that right?
In fact, I originally thought I wanted to be a truck driver at a high school, but of course I wasn't old enough to get a license. And again, I thought that was too darn big and I couldn't handle it, so I went off and joined the Air Force, which turned out to be a good thing.
What'd your father say about you joining the Air Force
instead
of the Navy?
I think he was being diplomatic. He basically said you're a success if you do it, if you're doing what you want to do, and all that. I was hoping he'd get to ride with me, but unfortunately he passed away just as I was completing truck driver training. But oh well.
Do you attend military reunions?
I haven't yet, but of course, for the most part, I kept so busy driving a truck that I really didn't have time to do reunions or even do things to support veterans. But luckily now I'm retired, so I belong to VFW Post 9550 here in Centerville, and I'm so glad that I can finally give back.
Have you heard about Honor Flight?
I have.
Have you been on it?
I have not. I've been to the wall by myself a couple of times and was proud to be selected as one of the ushers when the moving wall came to Centerville.
Oh, sure.
And what a moving experience. Even though I missed Vietnam, I was by a year I was too young for the draft. So
Well, I've been on Honor Flight, and it's a great trip.
It's an awesome program.
If you have a chance, it's worth the trip down there. In fact, I would recommend it. And secondly, when I went, I didn't realize you could take a guardian. I should have taken my son, who was a military veteran, but I got assigned to somebody.
I'd ultimately like to be a guardian if I can get the budget director to.
Well, try it. It's worth the effort.
Absolutely,
it's worth the effort. Is there anything we want to cover that we haven't touched on yet?
Well, like I said, for me, the Air Force was a great experience. I'll have to start out by saying in the mid-'70s when we went to the all-volunteer force, it was the military tried to get women into non-traditional career fields like aircraft maintenance. So when I got to the Boeing 737, Rita Dowdy was my trainer. She was a buck sergeant and farm girl from Iowa, and she taught me more about maintenance than I think any 5 of the male buck sergeants. So I started out with the idea that, and I did. I found that over my 23 years that the women I worked with were just as awesome, as professional as any of the guys, and that part of it I cherish.
And that's progress.
That is progress.
Anything else you want to touch before we wrap it up?
Well, I hope any of you college or college age or high school age folks will consider the military. I mean, like I said, it was wonderful for me.
Yeah.
And wonderful for our country.
Good. I've got one final question.
Go ahead, sir.
Do you still chew tobacco?
That was the one and only time. Thanks for asking, Bob.
I bet Dagmar thinks
She's glad too,
that was
yes.
a good decision. Jeff, that was a good decision. Okay, thank you for watching. It's been a good time.
Bob, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.